It's a little nippy in here, man. Let me take this jacket off. It's a little cold. How you all doing today? Oh, good. Cool. So everybody here is in college, right? Nah, I gotta ask that again, bro. Is everybody here in college?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's a big thing. Do y'all understand why that's like a really important thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, folks that tend to look like us or come from the places where we come from, most of y'all grew up here in the Bay Area for the most part, right? Like, the numbers are not really in our favors around going to college. What they're in our favors for is going to jail or getting shot or getting robbed or being a part of some other type of violent crime or producing children before we get married or contracting diseases or getting sick or dying. So the fact that everybody in this room is in college right now is a huge thing. I need y'all to really make some noise for that right now. Let's do that. And from what I'm hearing, most of you all are first generation, right? Meaning like you're the first one in your family to go. So I am as well. So my name is Charles Cole III. That means there's two of them before me. Don't mix us up. My daddy got bad credit. I don't. That's it. That means something. I'm telling you. I'm just letting you know. It's hard getting. I'm trying to get a house, man. It makes a big difference. That's okay. I love my daddy. And Charles Cole Sr. He has passed on. He passed on a while ago. But that name means a lot to me. The legacy that I leave with my family means a lot to me. I was born. I grew up in Oakland. I was born in Chicago. I'm going to just start by telling you a little bit about myself, and I'm going to just tell a story. I'm not going to talk at you. I just believe the best way to communicate with people is to tell stories. That's the way our ancestors used to do things because it was an outlaw for us to be able to read. If it was found that you could read as a slave, you'd be punished. And if you did it again and again as a repeat offender, it would kill you. We were bred to be the biggest and the strongest, not to be the smartest and the brightest. There's a reason why the NFL and the NBA looks the way it looks today. Those things are not by accident. I mean, sports is in my blood. I played basketball. I love basketball. Basketball kept me out of a lot of trouble. But I say that to remind us that the ability to go learn, the ability to read, the ability to read something off Instagram, the way in which you was talking about, that's not something that we was able to do all the time. And it was outlawed. And you got to ask yourself questions like, why would you outlaw something like that, right? Why are you more comfortable with us being really like the biggest and the strongest, but you're not comfortable with us being able to be literate and to be able to speak? And that's because there's a lot of power in being smart. There's a lot of power in having that type of access. There's a lot of power in being able to articulate yourself. And I really just want to put that out there as you all are in a position to be able to do those things. And you are the first people in your family should be able to do that in the way in which you're doing it. So even though I'm Charles Cole III, I'm the first in a long line of Coles, in a long line of Mallorys, in a long line of Adams, in a long line of Hoopers, the bloodlines that I come from, that actually was able to go out and learn in a different type of way. And that just means a lot to me. So, I was born in Chicago, 83. I guess I'm an old head to y'all, not to everybody in here. My parents were young in the 80s. I had young parents. My mother was 21 when she had me. And in Chicago, much like in Oakland, much like in New York, much like in Baltimore, crack was a drug that was fairly new. It was an interesting drug, kind of like the way people are on pills now, or Molly, or whatever it is that people think about these days. Think of that as the crack of that time. And so what happened in our communities is, before people saw crackheads, there were crackheads. So what that means is, they were trying this new drug, didn't really know the full impact of it, and by the time we realized what it was, a lot of people that look like us were already plagued by it. Follow me? So my parents were two of those young people that I had, and they were, you start off by selling it a little bit, use it a little bit, and then those scales kind of tip a different way, and that's just not really good. That's not a good way to sell drugs. Somebody needs to explain to my father that when you try to sell drugs, you have to sell more than what you smoke, he didn't get that concept, made things a little difficult, right? But I had great grandparents. So my grandmother lived in Kentucky. My mother's mother, she lived in a small town called Paducah, Kentucky. And so I would move back and forth between Chicago and Kentucky when things kind of fell apart for my parents. And so what that meant for me is that I went to a lot of elementary schools, man. Before I even got to California, I went to maybe like 10 elementary schools. To give you a context of how often I moved, I'm the oldest. I've never been separated from my brothers and sisters. I was born in Chicago. My brother is the middle child. He was born in Kentucky. My sister was the baby. She was born in Chicago. We ended up back in Kentucky. And the blessing of that is I got raised by a really amazing woman named Ozetta Hooper. And she didn't have a lot of education. She didn't have a lot of money. I just never felt poor with her. I didn't know I was poor being with her. And my faith in God comes from like that woman, because just of what she was able to take care of me with, the type of joy she was able to give me, the things that she taught me, I owe everything that I am to this woman. And I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way about your money, correct? Clap if you love your mama, man. So, that was my mama. When my mother couldn't be a mother the way that she needed to be, that was my mother. And she died in 1992 on Thanksgiving. And so, just recently, this past holiday, I flew in on the 1st. I flew back home. I live in Oakland, but I was in Chicago from December 25th to the 1st. And I went and I visited where I grew up. So in Chicago, everybody knows Chicago is a big city. It's huge. It's one of the largest cities in the country. But there's a bunch of suburbs in Chicago. Chicago is still a very segregated place. So in the suburbs, you can look at it a bunch of different ways. There are what's called the woods and the parks. That's how I look at Chicago suburbs. I live in the woods, so like Maywood, Inglewood. Has anybody heard of Inglewood, Illinois? That's the place where like Chief Keef lives, or Derrick Rose grew up in that place. It is a literal war zone. And the woods look exactly the same as they did when I left it, when I was a little kid. And you have the parks. You have places like Hyde Park, where President Obama owns his home. It's a very different place, okay? So over this break, I went home and I got to talk to my cousin. And one of the reasons that I'm taping this is because I'm going to probably send this to my cousin, because he's the same age as you are. And I went out there for the sole purpose to have a conversation with him. The conversation I'm about to have with you all. And in that conversation, like my cousin is in a very similar place that you all are. He is at a crossroads in his life. He can make a few different decisions. And he made some mistakes, but he's a very smart kid. And so what I told my cousin was that like you have to really make a choice on what it is that you want to do with your life. And I need you to look at the men in our family and just look at the history of how that's been going, bruh. And I need the history to inform your future. Meaning that I need you to look at how things have happened and how your decisions will end up turn. The best predictor of the future is what's happened in the past. Like history is the best predictor of the future. Alright? How many of y'all lost people in the streets? How many of y'all done went to funerals to bury friends? I've spoken at more funerals than I've spoken at weddings. Alright? And so I wanted to have that conversation with him. So the other thing that I did is that while I was there, I rented a car and I drove 5 hours to Kentucky, Paducah, Kentucky, the other place where I grew up. And I went to go seeing where I grew up as an adult with adult eyes. Like I've been able to go to college, I've been able to go to grad school, I've been able to travel the world, I've been able to meet different people. It was, I had a sense of pride and I had a sense of pain, just of what I went through and what I experienced. But what I left there with was a better understanding of my parents and the decisions that they made. See, even though my parents were drug addicts, they did the best that they could. And it doesn't undo the things that I went through. But when I go back to Maywood and I go back to Paducah and they look exactly the same, you know, the fact that my father put us on a Greyhound bus after my grandmother died and got us all here to California, even though growing up in Oakland was really tough, it was the best decision that he could do. It was the best thing he could do for our family. And it paid off. My parents got clean when I was in middle school. I ended up going to school. I ended up going to college. I ended up doing some really great things. just like you are. And when I graduated from high school, people were so proud of me, right? How proud was y'all families when you graduated from high school and you got into college? Somebody, just say, raise your hand. Somebody, tell me, how proud was it?
It was great.
What made it great?
The fact that it was a long journey. It was a long journey, and a lot of people had left. A lot of people did stay, and it felt like all that work. I even wasn't going to stay, but it just felt like all that work was just mission accomplished.
Yes.
Okay. Mission accomplished. Remember that he said that. What's your name?
Nick.
Nick said mission accomplished. I'm just thinking of like when George Bush stood on the hangar and behind the sign that said mission accomplished, but it was still 10 years of war left. That's what I'm thinking about. Your war is not over. I just want you to know that.
Oh, I know that.
I got you. But that's a big point of what I'm talking about here, right? So my journey here, but I had a long journey too. And so when I got here to California, I was homeless for about 2 or 3 years. I was homeless. I spent time in shelters here in San Francisco. I spent a lot of time in shelters in Oakland. I spent a lot of time standing on soup lines, standing in line for people to give me toys for Christmas, things like that. It's a really humbling experience. And so I say all that stuff to say, like, those things go into making us who we are. So when I graduated, it was the same thing, right? It was like, yeah, man, it's like feeling of accomplishment, right? But then I started thinking about it. And then I got angry. I got mad at that, man. And people in the room, I'm a real honest, like, passionate dude. If I say some stuff that's kind of off kilter, you gotta rock with me. And you gotta, like, I apologize in advance. I want to have a very authentic conversation with y'all. The reason why I got pissed off at that, though, is because it's like, wait a second, man, like, why are you so juiced that I graduated from high school? I'm supposed to do that. Am I not? I mean, I know all my uncles didn't do that, or my cousins might not have did that, or my moms didn't do that. But damn, why are you so juiced that I like got into like a state college? The way I look at my life, and people think that I'm dumping on them when I'm like, man, and like, Charles, like, you seem hungry, like, you just don't seem like you're satisfied where you at. And I'm like, I'm not. And people get upset with me about that. Because what that says to them, that I'm not happy with the position that I have in life, even now standing in front of you, there are just things that I want, things that I'm ambitious for, that I want to just be able to do, that people in my family have never experienced. People will look at your ambition as a slight to them. So, gentlemen, welcome to the part of your life where you no longer fit in any box for the rest of it. When you come back home, when you come back to the hood, right, there's certain things you're going to see. There's certain things that your friends going to say. There's certain places that you're going to walk into. I walked into a friend's house, no lie. I have 3 degrees, y'all. I have traveled the country. I've been all over the world doing like some cool stuff. I've eaten cool food that I never thought when I was a kid. I was like, that shit looks disgusting, but I've eaten it, I've enjoyed it. I've walked into like my friend's house in the hood, yo, and it's like a tech in his kitchen. And there's people in the house. And this is just normal. Like, it's not, nobody is tripping that there's a tech in the kitchen. Like, I just got through like doing like this event with like Huffington Post and like talking to like these like professors and stuff, and like, yo, when I went back in that hood, like, nothing has changed in that place just because my place in life has changed. And y'all got friends that's the same way. You've gotten into somebody's car and somebody's had like a pound of weed on them. Somebody's had a chocolate or whatever. Whatever it is that you grew up around. Maybe not you. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. That's just the environment that I come from. And like, now when I'm having conversations and it's like, oh, I'm empathetic, but I'm also like, man, this is not like, this ain't it. This ain't it. I'm not even thinking about myself, but it's just like, yo, I just don't see, I don't know what the end game is. I don't know what we planning. So that's the hood. So now you're just never going to be good enough for nobody. I just want you to know that. I don't care.